Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. And welcome to a brand new season. And speaking of welcome back, we're back here at the stadium. As you call, during the off season, during the COVID, obviously we want to do our social distancing and stay at home and being more virtual. So of course, we saw a lot of the interviews and this kind of me talking to myself and just, without, the cool stadium in the background. So we're gonna be back at the stadium this season, not, crazy as much, but here and there, we'll still mix in interviews. Don't worry about it. We'll find some random weird guests and other podcasts and stuff like that. So, we're gonna wrap up, spring training is coming to a close. We'll kind of just give you some of the last, news and notes on the team, the updates, the injuries, and kind of like what the final roster is gonna look like. But before we get the on-the-field stuff, we had a little off-the-field business. And of course, in terms of fans back in the stands, well, finally, New York State and New York City agreed for Yankee fans to be in the stands for the games. But of course, there's a lot of stipulations. Can only be at 20% capacity. Now, this is going to be funky, and I'm going to break down how this whole works. So first of all, in order to get in the stadium, you got to show you got your vaccinations, you come with your COVID card, or you got to take one of those PCR or rapid tests on the spot. So you look at that situation that you're probably gonna have to come early regardless. Now it shouldn't be too big a deal because again, you're dealing with 20% of capacity crowd, so it's not like you're doing this with 50,000 people, which would just be an absolute disaster. But still, if you're gonna go to the game, you should definitely plan, be there like, maybe probably 2 hours beforehand just to go through all that stuff. Now, in terms of the actual seats, how you're gonna get it, it's gonna be tricky because obviously now you got limited seats. So first dibs is going to go to season ticket holders and what they're calling limited capacity games. So the way this is going to break down is going to be pods. So it's not like, back in the old days where you just get, hey, row A, seat 1, sit wherever. You're going to be assigned a pod. Now, if you're a season ticket holder and you don't like your pod, because, hey, I used to sit up in the front row. Why am I in a pod all the way back here? I don't want to pay for this. So they'll refund your ticket for the value, again, if you don't want to accept your pod. But if you do, want to accept your pod, again, the chances are you might not have a great seat as you once had. So, and this goes back to, 2020, because again, a lot of people made down payments on the seats, and the Yankees were like, all right, do you want to, keep the funds in there and make that go to 2021, or you want your money back? So I guess, at least enough people kept their, their tickets so that, they're going to be there for 2021, and they might sell on the secondary market or something like that. So if you're kind of like Joe Schmo fan right now, it's going to be a little tougher to get a seat. Now, what if you say you had a ticket for 2020 and of course you never got to use it? Where does it go? So basically the Yankees are going to be releasing information. So basically with those tickets, either you could get a rain check for a later date, which might be tough again because again, seats are going to be kind of limited, or you'll just get a refund for the price of the ticket. Now, in terms of the secondary market of places like StubHub, that's going to be really touchy. So the only people who really get any sort of reimbursement on a seat that you bought on StubHub was the original owner of that seat. So let's just say it got resold 3 times on StubHub or something like that. You somehow have to backtrack that and get that to the original owner somehow, and that original owner is the only person who would get that refund from StubHub. If you can't get that lineage or track that person down, you might be SOL on that. Now, the best way to get the refund, of course, if you ever got your tickets through Ticketmaster, because they're hooked up with the system like that, and basically, and they've been doing this for, Ticketmaster with everything with concerts and everything like that, other venues. Basically, you can just get your refund back straight through Ticketmaster. So if you got your ticket through Ticketmaster and you want to get the refund, that's probably the quickest way to get it done. If you got it on the secondary market, like a StubHub, like something like that, could still be done, but it's going to be a little much tougher. And of course, once before you go inside, they're going to check your temperature, and of course, everything's going to be socially distant. And well, I'm not really sure how the beer lines are going to work. And I don't know if there'll be a Section 420 pod, but I'll look into that for you. And with all that business out of the way, let's get to the actual team. Now, going back to some of the rules from 2020, the Yankees will be able to carry 26 players. So Boone ideally wants to have 13 pitchers and 13 position players. Does anyone know how this damn thing even works? So let's go over this roster. I'll give you the starting rotation, what the bullpen should look like, what the position players are going to be looking like, what the utility and bench players should look like, and what players might be down there in the minors waiting in the wings, which are going to be very valuable later in the season. Now, of course, the starting rotation, we have the ace Garrett Cole, we know. Number 2, Corey Kluber. And of course, remember Kluber, Cashman picked him up on a 1-year deal for $11 million. Now, again, normal circumstances, you would say Severino's the number 3, but of course, he's rehabbing back from Tommy John, missed all of last season. He's rehabbing, but he's not really going to be ready till June. So, he'll be coming back soon. But of course, the number 3, another deal that Cashman pulled off in the offseason, Jameson Taillon. He'll be your number 3 starter, again, coming back for a couple Tommy Johns himself, but he's going to be ready to start the season. And, of course, rounding out the bottom of the rotation, you have some of the Yankees' young guns from their system. Of course, Jordan Montgomery making his comeback. And, again, he pitched at 1 game in the playoffs. And, of course, you know, someone who had a really good spring, actually, is Domingo Germán, also coming back from an issue of course, an off-field suspension from a domestic situation. We never got the details of that, but he's actually had a fantastic spring. So those are going to be your starting 5 at least to start the season. So again, we're going to have Cole, Kluber, Talkin, Montgomery, and Germán. But the big X factor for the Yankees is going to be Luis Severino. Remember, missed last season due to Tommy John surgery. He's in spring throwing, again, not pitching in any games yet, and won't be available until about June. But you talk about, you know, in terms of if you want to make, this is almost like making a blockbuster deal, you know, at the trade deadline. So if you could get him, you know, behind Kluber and Cole, 1, 2, 3, in the playoffs especially, you know, in that first round, you could throw those 3 studs out there at a team. And that just gives the Yankees a tremendous advantage. But again, you're not really going to see him until midway to the season. And of course, they're going to baby him the whole way. He'll probably just do 5 innings like that until he builds up his arm strength. But again, it'll be a real good shot in the arm once he joins the team. Now, David Garcia also had a pretty good spring, but of course he seems like he's just going to be the bit of the odd man out. But he's going to be valuable, as well as Mike King, because again, with Kluber as well as Talkin, we're just not sure, you know, are they going to go a full season? Again, they're coming back for some major injuries, and Kluber himself really hasn't pitched in 2 seasons. And of course, you know, Jameson, he's had a couple of Tommy Johns, of course, coming back from cancer. But again, they all both seem throwing the ball really well in the spring, and that's all well and good. But you know, at some point they're probably going to go down just from the fact they haven't pitched in a while, and they haven't pitched this long. So, you know, maybe they might be good the first month or 2, but at some point they're probably going to need, you know, a couple of starts off. They might go into DL once or twice. And of course, even Severino's coming back. But if he's coming back, how effective is he going to be? And he's going to need a couple of breathers. So, you know, it's important, and it's good that the Yankees do have, you know, someone like a David Garcia in the background just in case someone goes down, which, again, very likely, I guess with the injury history of Kluber and Talkin, it's going to happen. Now, in normal circumstances, I would say the Yankee bullpen was all sunshine and rainbows, but the Yankees did take a hit early on with Zach Britton. Now, he came to camp with a little weight loss compared to last season. Turns out he had COVID and actually lost a great deal of weight, and then experienced some discomfort in his left elbow. They were like, all right, let's take him for an MRI, and it turns out he had a bone chip and he needed to have it removed. So he went under the knife. He's going to be gone to start the season at least. Really no timetable exactly when he's going to come back. Good chance, again, just to predicted. It was based on Gio Urshela's surgery. Again, Gio Urshela also had a chip removed from his elbow in October, and he was ready to, to compete in spring training and will be there for opening day. So if you look at that same timetable with Britton, I know it's different with a pitcher. He probably won't be back, if he even is, till maybe like August, September, and that's probably that's probably looking at positively. Good chance he might miss the whole season. Again, they just really have no exact timetable, but it is a blow for the Yankees, just because he was the 8th inning man for the Yankees, but a lefty, and a kind of a special lefty, because yeah, of course you get all the lefties out, but again, with his sinking stuff, he was also probably even more effective against right-handers, and it was actually a very valuable weapon. So unfortunately, he's not going to be there to start the season. Doesn't mean the Yankees bullpen is garbage or it's lost. I mean, there's still a lot of great arms in there, and still might be one of the best bullpens, at least in baseball. But again, losing Britton, that's kind of a big blow. Now, sitting in the bullpen, of course, is going to be the closer Chapman. And this, spring he worked on a new pitch, a splitter, something to add to his repertoire. Again, he was pretty much, someone who just blaze you away with a 102-mile-per-hour fastball. But hey, look, he's getting up there in age a little bit. And also, this seems like in the game now, everyone throws 100. So maybe he's not as unique. So he kind of needs to work on another weapon. So he's going to be featuring the splitter, something he said he only used 3 times last season. He's going to use it this season more just to be something that this offset is, fastball, which is still great and all. But again, it's like to throw 100 now is like really nothing. Like everyone throws 100. Now, of course, with Britton gone, everyone kind of moves up the slot in importance. So Chad Green will probably be like your 8th inning guy. And then you're looking at Darren O'Day, who the Yankees got on a 1-year deal. Again, Ottavito, remember, got shipped out to Boston. So Day will probably maybe be like your 7th inning guy, even though he's more of like a righty specialist. And of course, also in the bullpen, you can have Justin Wilson, as well as Luis Cessa, probably be like your long man. Nick Nelson, that'll be your long man. But I think someone who really could step up big and maybe have a great breakout season and would be needed for the Yankees is Jonathan Loáisiga. And it's going to be, really important for Loáisiga, and it's really important for the Yankees for him to really have a great breakout season. Again, he's been in the Yankees, farm system and up on the majors back and forth a little bit, and they've ideally tried him out as a starter. doesn't seem to really have it that, but the Yankees have, used him out of the bullpen, in the past 2 postseasons, and he's been semi-effective. Again, they don't really put him in too much high-pressure spots, but again, he has a great fastball. He has the stuff. He just never really put it together, so he might be similar to what, the Yankees had with Mariano in '96 or Dellin Betances around 2015, 2016 when he had his breakout. Really more like Betances, because initially, same as Loaizaga, they thought Betances would be a starter. This never panned out, but out of a bullpen, he was phenomenal, and Betances actually went to the All-Star game a couple of times. So I think Loaizaga has that type of stuff, and this could be finally the time where he puts it together. And again, with the loss of Britton, maybe it forces Loaizaga to step up, and maybe he turns into another Betances or another Chad Green, someone who the Yankees can depend on late inning in games. Well, that takes care of the pitching. Now for the position players on the field. Now, lingering over the Yankees' head is going to be the decision of Jay Bruce, because the Yankees, invited him to spring training. Now, he does have an opt-out for March 25th, which he may, want to stay with the team, or he may opt out. Now, he actually has had a good spring training for the Yankees, surprisingly. And look, I'll admit I was wrong. I thought he'd be a clunky guy and get hurt or get plantar fasciitis and stuff like that. But no, he's been able to play the outfield, which, again, to my surprise, and belting a few home runs, hitting the ball hard. Looking like the Jay Bruce from a couple of years ago. So, makes an interesting choice. He might maybe be able to get a full-time job somewhere else, because, again, with the Yankees, he'll probably be a position bench player, part-time player. He may not want that. So we'll see what decision he makes, and that kind of affects a lot of things. But the Yankees, I think, maybe, played the hand a little bit of what's going to happen. Again, they cut Mike Ford already. I mean, he sent him down to AAA as well with Theo Estrada. Now with Ford, 2 seasons ago with the Yankees, it was fine. Him and Talkin were kind of surprised for the Yankees. Remember, the whole roster was wiped out with injuries, but Ford was one of the guys that kept the team afloat and, got them to 100 wins. Last season for Ford wasn't as good. Again, he had one pinch hit, one at bat in the playoffs. Before that, he didn't even play since August. So, he really fell down the ladder there in terms of, his value to the team. And again, not having a good spring, got booted to AAA. So that is probably a signal that the Yankees are looking to try to get Bruce to want to stay with the club. So that's a good sign there. But we'll see what decision Bruce makes. Again, Bruce, in terms of the outfield, I just don't see there's going to be much room for him there. I guess, maybe once in a while he could spell Judge here and there to play right field. Maybe give Luke Voit a break at first base. But overall, if Bruce wants to stay long, a veteran bat with power in Yankee Stadium, that'd be a great weapon for the Bronx Bombers. So this is what your typical lineup should look like. Corona. Yeah. So this is what the everyday lineup and the positions should look like for the most part, and probably would look like. Of course, DJ LeMahieu at second base, the leadoff hitter with the Yankees started doing last season and worked out fine. Aaron Judge, who Boone likes up early in the lineup, he'll be a right fielder batting second. Now, on the number 3 hole, ideally you want a switch hitter there, and the Yankees only have one, and he's pretty darn good. You'll have Aaron Hicks in center field batting third. Batting cleanup, your power guy, your typical prototypical power guy who you want is going to be Giancarlo Stanton, who the Yankees pretty much going to say is going to be a DH pretty much the whole season. We'll get into that a little bit. Of course, now after him is going to be the Yankees' Luke Voit, the blue-collar guy at first base. Then after that, you could kind of go in a few different directions, but most likely you'd want to go with Gleyber Torres. Again, didn't have a great season last season, a little downer compared to, but again, a 2-time former All-Star, and I think he'll have a good bounce-back season. Then after that, you'll go with Gary Sanchez. He'll be a catcher behind the plate. Come down a little trim, a little slim. Again, there's going to be a big season for him. He has a lot to prove. And after that, you'll probably flip these guys too anyway, but I would probably most likely go with Clint Frazier, who's going to get a crack finally at the full-time left fielder. And of course, batting ninth is going to be Gio Urshela at third base, who, you might think about he's 280, 300 type hitter, great defense at third base. So that's going to be your prototypical Yankee lineup for most days. Now in left field, of course, Clint Frazier is getting his first, crack at being the full-time player, which, I think he deserves it to get. But of course, you have Brett Gardner-Linger. Again, the Yankees brought him back on a 1-year deal. I didn't think it was really necessary. I didn't think they really do it. But again, they brought him back, and I'm happy he's back. I didn't hate the guy, but I just didn't know if there's enough room for him. But it kind of, going back to the whole Jay Bruce thing, that kind of affects what's going to happen to Mike Topman. Because, Topman and Brett Gardner, more or less the same type of play, a little more or less. I mean, Gardner has a little more power, but in terms of their usefulness, they're speedy guys, they're outfield guys, they can play many positions in the outfield. But you really can't have both. So if Bruce is going to stay on this team, it probably means goodbye for Topman, because you don't sign Brett Gardner for $4 million and have him on the team and then keep Topman as well. It just goes to the same type of play. It doesn't make sense. So if Bruce stays, that means Topman's probably gone or goes down to AAA, and that's how that would work out. But also on the bench, so say you have Gardner, you'll say if Bruce stays, that'd be great. Now, in the infield, you got Tyler Wade, another left-handed bat. Not a great bat, but listen, again, he's just there for his defense. Maybe give Torres a day off here or there, or come with some late innings if the score is a blowout. And, of course, behind the plate, you're going to have Higgy. Now, again, remember back in the playoffs, Cole was exclusively throwing to Higgy. They, just Cole and Sanchez weren't getting on the same page. Cole had a bit of a rough stretch there, but he seemed to be locked in with Kyle behind the plate. But this season, Boone wants to try something different. He actually wants to go with starting with Cole and Sanchez, at least on opening day. And I like the idea, more or less. Okay, I understand. In the playoffs, you can't mess around. You can't take chances. You can't experiment. So if Cole was working with Higgy, then fine, you don't mess with that. For a new season, you got a little room to experiment. And if it turns, again, Sanchez and Cole can't get on the same page, all right, you can always go back to Higgy. But to start the season, not much of a big deal. So that's your Yankee roster right now. Again, you're looking at 13 pitches, 13 position players. That's probably what you look at to start the season. There'll be tweaks along the way, but that's pretty much your ball club. I feel like I'm being watched. As for the big bat, the big man, Giancarlo Stanton, this season the Yankees are really going to try to keep him off the field as much as possible. Again, health has been an issue with him the past couple of seasons with soft tissue injuries. So it's better to just keep him off the field, and I agree with the Yankees totally on that. So he's mainly going to be a DH, and especially if they do end up picking Jay Bruce, stays with the club, then you don't see Stanton getting any playing time whatsoever, unless it's an interleague game. But even with that, I think they're going to try as much as to keep him off the field, keep him healthy. Same with Judge as well. Now Judge is a little more athletic, and he's actually a great right fielder, so him don't worry as much. But with Stanton, it seems like whether it's running a base or playing a little outfield or whatever, maybe because he doesn't play as often, he's not stretched out, always ends up getting hurt like that. So it's just he's too good, too valuable, too much of an MVP type of player to just always be injured like that. So the best way to keep him healthy, keep him as a DH. And of course with Stan as well as Judge, they kind of tweaked their off-season workout regimen a little bit. Not as muscular, I mean still big dudes, but of course, try to be just more flexible and less, maybe flipping like 300-pound tires over, and just be more like flexing and doing yoga and stuff like that. And in general, the Yankee players have been a little slimmer this spring. Last season, maybe it's just because of the way the spring training started, then it stopped because of COVID, and then they got back into it again. So many players didn't have that normal workout routine. A lot of flies around here, but don't worry about that. But just in general, some players like Gary Sanchez has come in trimmer. Gleyber Torres has been trimmer, because I mentioned Judge and Stanton. And maybe that is attributed to some of the poor performance we saw last season from some of those players, as well as the injuries. So this season, normal normal off season, normal spring training schedule, and then normal regular season schedule. Probably, it's going to produce better results. I don't think they'll be as hurt as they were last season. And of course, I do see some big bounce back years, especially from Gary Sanchez and Gleyber Torres. And the odd man out seems to be once again Miguel Andujar. It's kind of unfortunate. Now, he played in the Dominican League in the winter to sort of get his back going. Was hitting well, but he did experience some soreness in his wrist and his hand. Now, he started spring training with it and was okay, but it seems like it cropped up again. The Yankees put him through an MRI. They're really not sure what's going on with him, but at least in terms of making the roster for opening day, seems like he's going to be on the outs with that. And again, unless something happens to Gio Scheller, I just don't know if there's room for Ando. Again, he's too good to just keep on the bench and keep AAA. But again, it just seems like his defense isn't there, or just in general, he just doesn't get his opportunity. And again, unless something happens to Scheller, this Miguel Andujar just might be on the way out. But if you look at this roster, even if Bruce decides to stay with the Yankees, it's still kind of the same problem they had last season. It's still too right-handed in a way. I mean, the only really lefty bats you have is if, Aaron Hicks is there, again, gets a righty, he's a switch hitter, so he'll bat left. And maybe if Gardner plays a game, if, let's say Clint Frazier takes a day off. Other than that, the team is still way too right-handed. Now, these are not your typical right-handed hitters. Some of the right-handed hitters of the Yankees are probably better than most left-handed hitters in the game. But for a pitcher like a Tyler Glasnow, someone who could just throw heat as a right-hander, it could just mow down this lineup. As good as it is, there's still not enough balance, not enough really left-hand hitters. So might be a problem. Again, it's not really something Cash can really address greatly, and I don't really know there's any move out there to make, because again, everyone's really locked into contracts, and you're not gonna, unless you're gonna make a move to like get rid of Luke Voigt and bring like a right-handed bat first baseman. Otherwise, there's really nowhere to go with that. So this is gonna have to deal with it. It's gonna be an issue coming up late in the season, in the playoffs again. Again, we've seen these bats just go dead against a power righty arm, and might be the case again. But I guess let's cross the bridge to get there. But overall, it's still an explosive lineup. They're going to hit a ton of home runs. Not as many home runs in the past, because remember, the ball, they loosened up the laces a little bit. So you probably won't see as many home runs. But in terms of if Judge and Stanton are in there, they're going to put up their 35, 40 home runs, 100 RBIs, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a powerful lineup. But again, just a little too right-handed. So that's all you need to know in terms of getting back into the stadium as a fan to watch a game in person, the injury updates on the team, the news and notes, what's going to happen with Jay Bruce. We're still not sure yet what the roster should look like for opening day. So, how does this all shake out? What is this going to look like? So I'm going to give you my 2021 predictions for the New York Yankees. So I think 21 is going to be a good year, to use a song from The Who, Tommy, anyway. So I look at this team, I think, this last season, of course, again, it's hard to judge last season compared to this season. Again, it was a team where, you didn't have Judge or Stanton most way, you didn't have Severino there the whole time, but this team is light years much better than that, just the fact that those players are going to be back. But in terms of where this team is going to land, I think they'll get close to where they were in 2019. I think you're looking at a 100-win team. You just look at the AL East. I know Tampa's there, but really, if last season was a normal season, again, last season was only 60 games. The Yankees were starting to creep up behind Tampa a little bit in the standings. I know Tampa won the AL East, but if you had a normal 162-game season, I think at some point, again, getting Judge and Stanton back, don't even worry about Severino, just the fact getting Judge and Stanton back, I think they would have eventually caught up to the Rays and overlapped them and would have been the AL East champs. So this season now, with a full 162 games, I think the Yankees definitely finish way ahead of the Rays. And then again, with this team, which much improved pitching, again with Kluber, with Taillon, with Severino coming back, and of course you have Cole at the top, and really a plethora of people you could put in that fifth hole for the Yankees. And again, you're going to need them spread out a little bit, but I think you're looking at definitely close to a 100-win team. And again, I think they take the AL East title. I just don't. Again, Tampa's still good. They'll be annoying, probably a wild card type of team, but they did lose Blake Snell. Now again, they make trades, and whoever they get in the trade can end up being something to be a thorn in the side as well. But I just think they take a little bit of a step back. Again, they probably they had a shorter off season, just getting as deep they did in the playoffs and with the World Series and losing it, and then just kind of having a shorter off season. I think that usually affects a lot of teams. So so Tampa, you put them off the board. Toronto, I think they'll be much improved, but not really a threat to the Yankees. Boston, as we discussed in the last episode, they're kind of in a funky rebuilding mode, really, but not really. But I don't see them as any threat to the Yankees. And of course, Baltimore, they're like 4 or 5 years away from really being any sort of contender. So you look at, put Tampa aside, you look at the Blue Jays, you look at the Red Sox, you look at Baltimore. 3 Bs in there, that teams that the Yankees, they're going to face 18 times a season, and you can really just beat up on those teams, really collect your wins. Again, Tampa will play tough, but those other 3 teams in the division, the Yankees could really stack up on the wins like that. And again, having a roster of, again, I just think getting before Judge Stanton, I think Gary Sanchez is going to have a good bounce back year. I think Gleyber Torres is going to have a good bounce back year. I think Clint Frazier is going to take off, and I'll get to him in a second. Getting his first crack as a full-time left fielder. Again, I think you definitely look at a 100-win team and the AL East title for the New York Yankees. Corey Kluber, where does he end up? For him, I see about 14 wins, maybe 15, but probably more 14. I just don't think you're going to get a full season out of him where he could get 20 wins. And again, I don't think you're going to get a Cy Young performance. Again, he's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, but again, that was several years ago. He's now 35. He really hasn't pitched a full season since like 2018. I think it would be good. Again, he's been fine so far in spring training for the Yankees, and it just seems like he fits in like a glove, so that's good in that regard. I just don't know his effectiveness, and again, I just don't know he's going to be able to stay healthy the whole season. But if he's there, what really counts is for him to be there in the postseason. And so, if he makes it there by the end, I think it gives a chance a good deep run for the playoffs. But in terms of regular season, if the Yankees get 14 wins out of him, again, from what he came back from and only paying $11 million for 1 year, you definitely take it. Now, one tweak to the Yankee lineup compared to the previous season is, of course, now Clint Frazier is the full-time left fielder, at least to start the season. and I just think he's going to take off and flourish. And I probably mentioned a bunch of times, I just think, you know, anytime he came up with the Yankees, when they would bring him up, all he would do is hit home runs, and then there'd be an issue or something, or there's a roster situation and they have to send him back down. But now he's going to have a full season. It's his job to have, and he worked hard last season. He improved on his defense. Again, maybe he had this situation where 2 seasons ago, crashed into the wall, had the concussion issue, then maybe it was a little skitsy about going to the wall. Seems like last season he recovered from that, and he was actually a Gold Glove contender. Didn't win it, but just the fact he was mentioned in a Gold Glove conversation. Good news for him. So if you get good defense from him, and we know he can hit, I see a season for him where no reason why he can't hit 25 to 30 home runs. Again, he's kind of a guy that he'll probably be at the bottom of the lineup. He won't get that much attention. You know, if you're a pitcher, you have to go through the Yankee lineup, and like DJ wears you out, and Judge takes a lot of pitches, he wears you out. Hicks walks a lot. And you know, he'll start off 0-2 Hicks, and then next thing you know, it's 3-2. He works the count. So if you're a pitcher, you kind of like need a breather, and usually when you need to breathe, is the bottom of the lineup. That's when you kind of throw those meatballs into the 7, 8, 9 hitters. So that's going to be someone like a Frazier. Well, he's not your typical, you know, 7th to 8th place hitter who's kind of a scrub. He's actually probably really good. So he's going to get a lot of meatballs to hit. So again, I see 25, 30 home runs from him, as well as probably 75 to 90 RBIs. Again, I think he has a breakout season, and I think, you know, he's going to be that next wave of young Yankees kind of replaced. Because again, maybe someone like a Sanchez may not be there next year. We don't know, but you know, Frazier is going to be that next wave that comes in. Now, we'll have one more season of the Gardy Party, which I'm happy with. Brett Gardner's back, but I think this will be the last season. You know, obviously last season with no fans in the stands, he never really got a proper goodbye. I don't think the Yankees brought him back just for the sentimental reason to do that, man. You know, look, he is a good player when you put him in there, and again, late in his career, he's added a lot of pop, you know, changed his swing a little bit where he gets the ball projected up, and has been hitting a lot of dingers for the Yankees, and he's a good player. He's not a scrub, and he can play the outfield. He's still very useful in that regard, but at some part, you think it, you know, it's going to end. I think this will be the last season, unless he just, you know, something really freaky happens where, like, you know, Frazier tears his ACL or something, has some crazy injury where he's out, and then Gardner goes in there and just puts up tremendous numbers, but I just don't see that happening. So I think, you know, Gardner will have a good season. I think it's more of him just being a part-time player, late inning defense, maybe late inning substitute on the bases, you know, just to run the bases, still a quick guy. But this will probably be finally the last season for Brett Gardner, and I'm happy at least there'll be fans in the stands, you know, the whole way. Again, maybe as, you know, there's the COVID vaccines get rolled out, and then they lowered the age to 50, so more people get vaccinated. Maybe towards the end of the season, possibly get a full capacity crowd, maybe not, but maybe way more than 20%. So, you know, Brett Gardner will have that final salute, that goodbye from the Yankee Stadium crowd, which he, of course, deserves. Now, we discussed Kluber before, but let's look at the rest of the Yankee rotation. Not too confident in Jameson Taillon, just for the reason that I just, you know, I have more faith in Kluber than I have Taillon. I just don't think he's going to be there at the end of the day. Just getting 2 Tommy Johns and to get a whole season out of him, I think something just, you know, again, I hope I'm wrong, but I think something bad is going to happen to him along the way where he's not going to be there at the end of the road. But I don't think it's really a big deal, because I do have a lot more confidence in Severino, just for the fact that, you know, we've seen him do it before. He's been there, done that, so we know he could do it in a Yankee uniform. We know he could pitch in the playoffs and, you know, perform well. So, you know, even if you lose Taillon, that's not really as big a deal, because I think you do get Severino back. And if you got Cole, and if you got Kluber and Severino, those 3, if you tell me that those 3 are there in October and pitching healthy, then I'm saying definitely World Series for this team. I don't know about the win yet, but I'm saying they at least get a deep run. But if something happens where it's only Cole and you don't have Kluber there at the end, and you don't have Severino, Cole himself, as we saw last season, I just don't think that's enough to get past, you know, maybe get past the divisional round, but you do not get to the World Series. But if you, again, my promise to you is if you could guarantee me Cole, Kluber, and Severino, 1, 2, 3, are there in October, pitching healthy, pitching well, then I say yes, this team is definitely in the World Series, and really no reason why they can't win the World Series. Bathroom still works.